If love had a price and it fit inside a bottle, would you dare open it? In the heat of a Manila afternoon, with jeepneys growling and church bells ringing from Quiapo, Lila pressed her thumb against a glass vial that looked ordinary until the light caught it. Inside swirled a faint red shimmer, and fixed to the cork was a tiny white fang. They called it Gayuma. She called it temptation. They said its origin was older than the city, older than the cobbles of Intramuros, older than the first church that ever rose here. The old woman at the stall near the underpass spoke in a half-whisper, telling of healers from Siquijor who gathered sea wind and moonlight in coconut, bowls of Ilocano grandmothers who folded prayers into beetle leaf of Bicol waters where lava made the soil, wild and sweet, so roots learned to remember footsteps. The fang, she said, could be boar, dog, or carved bone shaped by human hands. What mattered was not the tooth itself, but the story carried by the person who sought it. For Layla, the meaning was both knife and balm. Gayuma symbolized a bridge across distances that city life made merciless. It meant courage for shy hearts, a talisman for those who feared that fate had forgotten their dress. Yet at its core, the healer warned, its symbolism was not control. It was clarity. It asked the heart to decide what kind of love it wanted to carry. It mirrored back the user, and sometimes that reflection was the true spell. Power whispered from the vial like steam rising from fresh rice. People believed it could draw attention, soften first meetings, make a soul magnetic in a crowd. Some said its purpose was to break the ice so two lives could finally see each other without the fog of doubt. Others swore it made the beloved dream of you, not as a puppet, but as a reminder to look again. Even lovers in old towns of Bulacan kept tokens like this for wedding days, so their vows would begin with sweetness instead of fear. Activation was not a recipe, but a ritual of intention, the old woman said. No measurements, no laboratory. One lit a small coal in a ceramic dish, laid upon it a pinch of kamangan and a strand of sampaguita. The smoke taught the room to breathe and the heart to speak. The vial rested in one palm near the chest, while the other hand covered it, heat to heat. The oraciones were never shouted. They were spoken as if confiding to a friend. She taught Layla a line that sounded like a wave sighing on rock. Asa inguan and J pag-ibig at Payapang Lube, liwanagin mawing iking landas, hiwaging sa iba. In the name of love and a peaceful heart, light my own path, not someone else's. On the cork was a tiny inscription that looked Latin, but was really a memory of many tongues, a crooked blessing scratched there by hands that did not want to forget. How it was worn mattered. The Gayuma could be kept as a pendant over the heart, wrapped in red cloth to warm it. Others tucked it in a pocket notebook where they wrote truths they were afraid to say out loud. Some placed it under a pillow for a single Friday night, not to bind a person, but to encourage dreams to bring answers. The bottle was never supposed to be flaunted. It was a private map, not a flag. Rules were not threats. They were guardrails on a cliff road with a wide view. The first was consent as the highest prayer. The second was do not lie while asking for love. The third was never pour the contents on food or drink to remove another person's will. The fourth was return it to the earth if your heart turns bitter. Leave it in a pot of soil or at a crossroads beneath a tamarind. The fifth was that any gift of attention without honesty would boomerang and shatter your own trust in yourself. The old woman called these the quiet commandments of the heart. Layla wondered who would inherit such a thing. The healer smiled and spoke of transmission like family recipes that tasted of smoke and afternoons. Some charms were passed from Lola to Apo on the day that Apo learned to keep a secret. Others skipped a generation and reappeared when a forgotten trunk was opened in a flood season. In some houses, the Gayuma was not a bottle at all, but a folded prayer in a wallet inked in brown by time, the edges soft from years of being carried near the skin. Every inheritance required a promise. Use this to see love, not to steal it. Across the islands, the soul of Gayuma dressed in many clothes. In Siquijor, the sea had a say, and healers spoke to wind with coconut oil and basil. In Baguio, pine resin scented the smoke and inked the air with mountain hush. In Batangas, a friar's book had once been copied by hand until its Latin became Tagalog music in the mouths of market sellers. In the Visayas, the charm carried the scent of sugarcane and rain. In Manila, it was the rumor under the LRT tracks, and the stories sold beside black candles and rosaries. A marketplace where faith shook hands daily. Balancing faith and belief was the real craft. Some would swear that the first glance changed after the ritual, that the beloved's eyes brightened like a street after brownout. Others would say the person holding the vial simply stood straighter, spoke clearer, smiled like a sunrise. The healer said both could be true. Mystery made room for bravery. If your kindness grew, if your courage learned to stand up and introduce itself, maybe that was the enchantment all along. Prayer did not erase effort. Belief did not replace respect. When the day came, Layla walked down Escolta with the amulet hidden against her heart. She did not sneak drops into coffee or murmur commands. She simply asked Paolo to join her for merienda, and when her voice shook, she held the vial in her pocket and remembered the oration about lighting her own path, not taking someone else's. Paolo laughed easily, as he always did, and told her he had been waiting for her to make the first move because she always seemed to be walking towards somewhere important. The fang pressed warm against her palm. In its tiny white curve, she saw a bridge built not of smoke, but of choosing to step forward. That night, she returned to the stall to thank the old woman, only to find a different vendor counting coins. The city had shifted again. Layla left a small sachet of sampaguita and a handwritten note under the corner of the table. The note said thank you for a map that pointed inward. She slipped the vial into a tin box beside a dried leaf and a movie ticket stub. It would be her child's one day, or her niece's, or nobody's. Perhaps she would pass on only the oration, because words had always been the sharpest fangs. Short example story. In a storm in Siargao, Mateo found a bottle with a tiny fang caught in mangroves. He did not seek to bend anyone, only to gather his courage. He whispered the oration, wore the bottle for a week, then confessed his feelings to Lyra at the sari-sari counter while buying sardines. She smiled, not bewitched but seen. Years later, the bottle was still in a drawer, but the courage it taught had moved out and found its own address. If this tale stirred something, tell me your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Gayuma is magic, mindset, or both? Tap like to support more Philippine stories, share with a friend who loves mysteries, and subscribe so you do not miss the next amulet tale from our islands.